I suppose I should have prepared some orchestral Raiders of the Lost Mustache music. But how are you today, Charles?
And we should have each gone out and bought some fake mustaches. But
that would have been a good idea, too. I don't like the glue they use, though. Spirit gum.
Yeah. Well, I've never tried it, so I don't know. But I can report I am wearing my new custom-made shirt from in Batu Feringhi, of all places. There's several custom tailors and in this resort town. And I guess it's because the visitors who come to there's several very expensive hotels, need something to do, and these tailors have figured out that they can sell them custom-made stuff. So I was a little suspicious of it. It's called Sparks Tailor, but somebody recommended it, so I tried them out on a shirt. I'm wearing it, and then I took a pair of custom-made Hong Kong pants into the guy. I said, "Just make me they're black pants." I said, "Just make me white linen." And then I took him 2 other pairs of pants to alter, and the bill for all the above was $70. I said to myself, "Wow." And
good deal.
Yeah, and I thought, I complained about a lot of these things is, they look good once or twice, and then when you send them in to be cleaned, they disintegrate. But these seem to be pretty well done. And the gap between when I used to buy custom-made suits in London, and I went to my tailor on a recent trip, and I asked, how much for my custom-made suit, and they were expensive back then. Now it's 7,000 English pounds.
Wow! Holy crap!
For a custom-made suit in London.
Damn.
And I'm going to experiment. I don't have any of those left, but I used to have like 10 of them, and they last for like 30 years, but still. That's a bit much. So, and also working hard on the healthcare kick. So yesterday for the first time, I hit tennis balls with a good player for an hour straight. And then I went, a number of hours later, I did an hour of weightlifting and other strength training. And then after that, I went into the pool and did 30 lengths in the pool walking. And I went to sleep early, but I feel great today.
Well, Charles, you're doing much better than Zoran Mamdani. He kind of embarrassed himself on the bench press the other day. Not able.
Well, then he followed it up saying that his program to make New York safer is to eliminate all misdemeanor crimes.
Stupid.
The man is really. He's stupid.
Not eliminate
fool.
The crimes, just eliminate prosecuting anybody doing them.
No. He's the status of misdemeanors will no longer apply. Anything that's a misdemeanor will no longer be a crime in New York City. So, what do you think that's going to do? The shoplifters will come jumping in here in spades. The motorcycle patrols on sidewalks, and all this stuff. Quality of life will go. It's not so good now, but under this moron, Kampala, Uganda will be a safer place than New York City. I gather that's not very safe. I think doesn't he live, or his parents have some gated compound with armed guards in it or something?
Well, they had the wedding there. I don't know if that's where he lives, but it's a stupid plan by Mamdani, no matter what.
Yeah.
I hope that guy doesn't win. I'll certainly be voting for Curtis. And, the guys at the Finest Unfiltered podcast seem to think that there is still a chance that Curtis could win. I mean, if we get Eric Adams, you have the future of garbage. If you get, our buddy Andrew Cuomo, you just got back to the garbage future because he was already a loser. We don't need to see him in action again. I don't know. It's not looking good, Charles. Everyone's going to have to move to Batu Feringhi.
Well, it's interesting. It's nice out there. Our club played the, I think, Tangling Club of Singapore, which apparently is a great tennis club. And so there were a whole bunch of Singapore folks up last weekend, and I spent time on Saturday and Sunday talking to them about Singapore. And, they were telling me about the great new things that in Singapore did not exist in 1965. There was no Singapore.
No Singapore.
There was
nothing. By the way, here's Sparks Taylor, Charles.
There you go. You get a sense of how small it is, right?
Yeah.
but and that's why the overhead's low. But you walk in there and they have fine fabrics that they use. I mean, the same bolts that you see in a custom tailor in London are there here. And obviously, it's a little bit cheaper to operate that shop than it might be to operate something on Jermyn
They don't
Street in
even
London.
need to sweep the urine off the street, so they're saving money on that.
Yeah. No, it is, and the tailor is, I think, Indian or Pakistani guy. And I said, what shall I call him? And he said, just call me Ron. Doesn't sound very Indian or Malaysian.
Oh, remember in Sasso, you got to call him Sasso. Nobody call me Sasso anymore. Now everybody call me Ron, short for Ronaldo. Okay, Sasso.
But truly, I love people who's, vendors who they say, okay, this is what we're going to do on this schedule, and here's what it's going to cost. And it actually happens that way. I mean, it's so refreshing. In New York, it's always like, they offer you some deal, you take it, and then they change the terms and they deliver late and they add this surcharge and this, none of that here, which is nice.
There you go. Next time you see him, let him know he's Sasso now.
What movie is that from?
That is from Carlito's Way, where he comes in with the switchblade and he says, he comes in, he says, where's my money? I don't know. Takes out a switchblade and he's, I'll cut your liver out. It's in a box under the safe. It's such a good movie. But enough of that movie, Charles. I don't mean to cut the story short. People do like to hear about what is going on in your new international life. But the big thing, obviously, is we've had this raid on the lost mustache. He doesn't look happy. What do you make of it?
Well, John Bolton is a career scumbag. I mean, he's just, you look at it, Obama likes to talk about the arc of history. If you look at the arc of John Bolton's history, what positive things has he accomplished? He was a UN ambassador under Bush. UN ambassador under Bush. And therefore, I think, participated in the duping of the entire world with the weapons of mass destruction argument that got us into Iraq. And he's just, he's one of these, I think he's a chicken hawk. He's all in the sense that he's always in favor of a war if he doesn't have to participate on the front lines.
Right.
And that's really not, I mean, if you go back to the origins of the United States of America, the king, and then before the king, the leader of the protectorate or the Commonwealth, and before that, the king of England, was always getting England involved in wars. And the founders had suffered their families had suffered heavy casualties in the past, and they were inclined to make it difficult for the United States to get back into a foreign war. Indeed, George Washington, in his farewell address, said, beware foreign entanglements. And, this is a man who defines foreign entanglements and domestic and personal ones, starting with that ridiculous mustache. So looking at this, the people on the left immediately, the Weissmans of this world, and the people who are implicated in the Russian hoax and got Pulitzer Prizes for selling fiction as fact, those people instantly are, this is retaliation and retribution. This is a political act. This is ridiculous. He was a Trump critic, and that's what Trump is now doing. He's going after his critics. No, what's going on now is, and various other people came up with this first, but I mean, after Trump lost the 2020 election, Joe Biden and his team, I think we're going to discover, coordinated a relentless and extra legal attack, not only on Donald Trump, but on his family, debanking his family, ransacking Mar-a-Lago on false pretext, and all these fake lawsuits, which did not happen independently. They were coordinated, as my bet, from the White House by political actors. Trump suffered actual, mental anguish, I would guess. His family certainly did. His family must have been wondering, what's going to happen if Joe Biden does another 4 years of this to a man who will, start Joe Biden's second term, if that nightmare had actually come to fruition, at age 78. So Biden and his cronies or whoever was running the auto pen, think of what they did to 1,500 people who were there on January 6th, in some cases who weren't even there on January 6th. Think about what they did. Think about the people who died in prison or died facing prison, who killed themselves by what the Biden administration did and its backers did. And I think this is a fair process to go back over and understand exactly what animated people like John Bolton. And I don't think it's just John Bolton that Trump will go after here. I think it was, frankly, a masterstroke to go after a Republican first. So that when he goes after people who pretend they're apolitical but actually are Democrats or Obama protectors, the Justice Department can say, listen, this is it was a bipartisan assault on the Constitution. The selection, the installation of a puppet president in Joe Biden, using the COVID lockdown and other means to make mail-in ballots possible. This was a plot that broke the Constitution and succeeded in installing a mentally incompetent and fatally crooked douchebag as the former president of the United States. I mean, you look at the situation in Ukraine right now, right? It certainly would not be this bad if Trump had won re-election or had been, if his election had been legitimized. And nobody's talking about the obscene ways in which the United States is supporting financially Zelensky and his backers. I mean, the tax revenues from Ukraine, off Ukrainian activities, don't even cover, last time I looked, 25% of the spending that's going on in that country. Who's supplying the balance? We are. Has this country ever supported a dictator like Zelensky with this kind of financial support?
Look at this, Charles. He's been shopping at the young men and boys section of the Mao department store. Look at this ridiculous outfit they have him in. The sweatshirts were better.
Yeah, but the point here is that how much there hasn't yet been an audit of the spending under Biden, and no one's really connecting the dots on why a Ukrainian would give Hunter Biden a board seat, and other bit. What were the Ukrainians getting out of that? It's pretty simple to see. All this foreign aid that goes right back into the economy and is likely stolen by the same people who paid off Hunter Biden and paid off the Biden family with a pittance of what we sent into the swamp that is Ukraine. How did Ukraine rise into a scenario where it deserved? I think Trump said we gave him $250 billion.
I think he says $350 billion, and then Zelensky rolls his eyes and shakes his head and does all kinds of things that if you were in court, they would tell you don't do that.
No. I think Trump says 350 of total aid, of which Europe gave 100 and we gave 250.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, and so the point is, $250 billion. Now, like you give that to Pete Buttigieg, and you get a bicycle with 3 wheels and no handlebars. I mean, that doesn't work. That's sustainable.
No seat, I think.
Yeah, he'd enjoy that. But $250 billion is a lot of money. At the very least, we should have paid down our debt by $250 billion. Before we start thinking about investing in Ukraine to get what? And you think about $10 billion was sent down to Haiti after the earthquake, in theory, to rebuild that place, which is today so dangerous. I mean, it's out of control. The policemen are afraid to be policemen. The military is afraid to go in there.
Didn't they send Kenya military to they're like, we need to find someplace even worse than Haiti to send the military to handle the police.
I mean, maybe you should export some lions down there. Or, in Denmark, you saw they have this new plan. I mean, this is the kind of thing when you read a plan like this, you wonder whether it's written by the Babylon Bee. But in Denmark, the zoo came up with the idea that many people get tired of their pets, and instead of just letting them run on the street or putting them up for adoption, the Denmark Zoo is saying, bring your unwanted pets to the zoo and we'll feed them to predators.
You got to tell them you're
saying
going to the vet or the dog park.
Saying to little Sally over here, you're not taking care of your pet. Do you want to take care of your pet? No, mommy, I don't. Okay, we'll just take the pet and feed it over here to Zorro, the lion. You're going to feed my pet to Zorro? It's just the inhumanity of that.
It's quite bizarre.
Yeah, and these are the kind of people we're supposed to emulate. The policymakers of Denmark and the EU, we're supposed to look up to them because they're enlightened. They're not really capitalist, evil capitalists the way we are. There's some Nimrod, last name Greer, on I think MSNBC, saying America was built by evil, rapist capitalists who murdered to get ahead. This kind of bullshit went out on MSNBC on Sunday. Your Sunday morning. I mean, to give that kind of viewpoint an airing and let it just go out there without having somebody saying, you have obviously, show me your transcript. You've obviously never taken a course in American history. You certainly, if you took one, didn't pass it legitimately. And yeah, you could say what you want on my TV show, but I'm going to bring in this expert and another expert to completely debunk you live on air. Did they do that? No. A bunch of bobblehead morons are, oh yeah, you're right on, sister. It's just bullshit.
Yeah, they have a lot of dumb people on there for sure. And then probably, I've been seeing a lot of clips of Abby Phillip lately where she just thinks that anything that she says is evidence, or if she hasn't seen it, it's not evidence. She says a lot of really dumb stuff.
Yeah, well, again, there's a bottom half of every class on a legitimate grading system. And a lot of people, unfortunately, in America are unbelievably stupid. It shows up in what passes for our press and academia. There are a lot of very stupid people, unfortunately, some of whom are in charge of grading your children's papers in school, and it's deciding who graduates with honors and who doesn't graduate, who gets a good job, who doesn't get a good job. A lot of stupid people make those decisions. And that's how you end up with Wes Moore, governor of Maryland, who's driving that state deeply into the dirt. The solution of these blue cities that are out of control is to manufacture crime statistics so that they look like crime is declining. And how do you do that? The violent crimes are just not going to report them, and that way we can say they went down. And that works perfectly until your mother's assassinated on the street. So
yeah, it's pretty bad. They were saying, Charles, that Trump's federalization of law enforcement in D.C. has really reduced crime. But actually, J.D. Vance was speaking to, I guess, Laura Ingraham, saying, and she was asking, oh, what about all these other cities? And he said, well, Washington, D.C. is a federal thing already. So he was sort of indicating that they're not going to do this stuff. But I haven't seen it around in New York yet, but they're saying that the military is going to be doing something. Just one more thing on Ukraine that we should mention. The idiots at the Lawfare Institute, remember, paid Vindman here $129,000, the Pritzker military fellow. He got $129,000 plus a $6,000 spiff or something. I don't know. But this was 2022. So
isn't this correct name of the Pritzker Foundation the Pritzker Fat Fuck Military Foundation?
Yes. Isn't that what it is? I don't know what he's doing with the military. The guy doesn't look like he could do one push-up. But this is interesting because this Pritzker Military Foundation you and I have discussed is in Illinois. And when I looked up the law for fundraising in Illinois, it seems that, doing a podcast that where Ben Witte says, hey, everybody, contribute money to the Lawfare Institute, if that gets broadcast into Illinois to the extent that a nonprofit 501c3 in Illinois gives them $136,000 and they're not registered with the Secretary of State of Illinois, it seems maybe illegal. I'm not a lawyer.
Isn't again, to correct your pronunciation, isn't it Illinoising?
Illinois, I think,
yeah,
to be
kidding.
precise.
Yeah.
But
so No, this is the whole thing that we're discovering now. In the attempted defense of not prosecuting the Clinton Foundation, the argument was made that the IRS doesn't have the resources to police nonprofits who illegally significantly change their authorized tax-exempt purposes without getting clearance in advance from the IRS. That was their argument. But that kind of it's bold to make that kind of argument when you know the details of what the IRS did beginning in 2000, I think 9. They say 10, but maybe as early as 2009, to go after right-leaning existing charities and right-leaning applicants seeking tax-exempt status. That approach should horrify people on the left. Because when you have that precedent that an IRS can use its awesome power to hold up the process by which you attain tax exemption, or alternatively to make it absurdly difficult for you to get tax exemption. I mean, in the case of the William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation and the Barack Obama Foundation, both of those applications were approved in about a month, okay? Meaning that neither was really scrutinized. And ever since, the IRS has not truly scrutinized each of those places. And what do you end up with? You end up, in the case of the Barack Obama Foundation, $1 billion cache of money that's in process of destroying the skyline, or that portion of Chicago, Jackson Park, where this ridiculous monstrosity, narcissistic, religious cult has sprung up. And in the case of Little Rock, you have, yes, they redid the downtown area, which had been blighted, but all the activities of the Clinton Foundation are controlled by the Clinton family, have been since November 2nd, 2013, in gross violation of applicable laws. So this is what you learn. If you're on the inside, right, and you want to play politics at the national level, you've got to stay on the right side of Democrats. Because
Charles, I don't know if you remember this detail, but when I went to this neighborhood in Chicago maybe 4 years ago, when this thing was just barely breaking ground, there was a guy there who said that he had become homeless, but he had construction experience and he needed a job. And when he went there, this is a black guy, he was upset with Obama because they wouldn't hire him.
Yeah. No, I mean, that if you go back to that picture, and I'm somebody who was told I had no artistic talent by my art teacher in 5th grade, which is good to know.
That's an opinion.
No, I don't. I can't draw a straight line. But this structure looks to me as if they held a national competition to bring me architects who are blind, have no sense of structure, have lost their license for gross incompetence. Give me a whole bunch of these people, and let's lock them in a room and have a competition, and let's erect the worst drawing that these incompetent people could come up with. And that's what they did. And yet everyone's going around saying, yeah, Barack, this is really just beautiful, just like your 8 years as president. This is just majestic. When the aliens come in November, the group that's coming, apparently, according to some Harvard nut professor, when they land, and the space aliens land, the first place they're going to go is, this is the structure of the leader of the free world. Take me to your leader.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up, because to me, it's evocative of the Imperial base makes some new Star Wars movie, and this is like the ground-based Death Star or something, like Darth Vader's apartment. It doesn't look good.
I mean, think of the arc of this guy's history. Of Obama's history. And there's a guy called John Cass, who I think is based in Chicago, who was inclined to like Obama. And he's got some column up that I saw in Free Republic, Orange Man Broke Me. And it's an imaginary dialogue between Pencil Neck and the Pencil Neck skeet shooter version and a psychiatrist. But, you look at, he was an not very distinguished student anywhere, but just plucked from obscurity, made president of the Harvard Law Review. And with that, in his bonnet, gets the book deal, somebody else writes the book, and then they push him into the White House. But his sell was that he was, quote, a community organizer. What does that mean? To me, that's a nuisance. Somebody who's useful is that construction worker who's homeless. There's a lot of stuff that should be torn down around the country that's blighted and disgusting. And then there's a lot of stuff I'm talking about public structures. And there's a lot of stuff that needs to be rebuilt. Learn a useful skill, plumbing, electrician, go down the list, carpenter. Don't be a fucking nuisance. You got to rent a crowd to show up at somebody's house.
Yeah, it's communist stuff, exactly.
Right.
Now, Charles, forgive me for interrupting, but we have hit the wall here on our intro segment, and people are going to be able to join us as we continue the conversation in the First Amendment Forum. People can join us on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com or subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. There's a lot more to discuss, so stay with us, everybody. We'll be right back.